Today I'm going to do a video on asset disposal, starting off with a summary of the double entries that you need to make to record the sale. The first thing you're going to need to do is to update depreciation. You need to remember that depreciation is only worked out once a year. So if you sell an asset during the financial year, it's going to mean that the value of the asset is going to decrease since the last time it was depreciated. So that is why we need to do this first step here. The double entry for this is to debit depreciation because it's an expense, and to credit accumulated depreciation because it is a negative asset. The next thing you need to do is you need to remove the asset from the book, so you transfer the cost price. To decrease an asset, for example vehicles, you need to credit it. Now asset disposal is a double entry for the rest of these transactions. The next thing you need to do is transfer the accumulated depreciation, because that accumulated depreciation belongs to the asset that is leaving the business. When you do this transfer here, you must remember to take the balance at the beginning of the year on the asset you're selling, plus what you did in step 1, the amount for the update. To decrease a negative asset here, you're going to debit accumulated depreciation, and asset disposal is the contra account. Then you need to report the selling price. For example here, if you sell the asset for cash, bank will increase, so you debit bank and contra account as asset disposal. If you are selling the asset on credit, then your double entry would involve debtors control being debited, and if you're trading it in, giving somebody an asset in exchange for a new asset, then you're going to debit creditors control, because the value of the vehicle you're giving them decreases what you owe them for the new vehicle. The last step for asset disposal is to calculate and record profit or loss on disposal of assets. To do this, the first thing you need to do is work out the carrying value, and then compare that carrying value with the selling price. If your selling price is below the carrying value, then you are going to make a loss. A loss is an expense which would get debited, asset disposal credited. If, however, your selling price was greater than your carrying value, that means you're going to make a profit, because you're selling something for more than it was actually worth. And in that case, you're going to credit profit on sale because that's an income, and asset disposal will get debited. Okay, let's move on now and do a worked example here. You're given a trial balance figure at the start of the financial year, and you are then given a transaction. On the 31st of July, a vehicle which had cost 180,000 was sold on credit for 82,000. Depreciation on vehicles is 10% per annum on cost. So the first thing we need to do is we need to calculate the amount for the update of depreciation. So we're going to take the cost price of the asset that I'm selling. I'm going to multiply it by 10%, but it's only going to be for 5 months, March, April, May, June, and July, and then obviously divide by 12, and that gives you 7,500. So your double entry here is to debit depreciation with that 7,500 and to credit accumulated depreciation. Step 2 is to decrease the cost price of the asset, so you credit vehicles with a cost price of 180,000 and debit asset disposal. Step 3 is to transfer accumulated depreciation. Now remember, I just told you that the amount you transfer here will be the balance of the accumulated depreciation plus the update. If you look back here, the balance of the accumulated depreciation was 65,000, the update was 7,500, so you're going to transfer 72,500. So you debit accumulated depreciation to decrease it and credit asset disposal. The next thing is to record the selling price, and it was sold on credit. If it's sold on credit, it means debtors owe you money, so you need to increase what debtors owe you, and you debit debtors control with that amount, and asset disposal is credited. The last thing you need to do is calculate profit or loss. And as I said, the first thing you do is calculate the worth of the asset, the carrying value, by subtracting accumulated depreciation from what it cost you. So this asset here, this vehicle, is worth 107,500. You only sold it for 82,500, so therefore you make a loss on sale. Loss on sale is an expense, so you're going to debit that, and you're going to credit asset disposal. So that's the general journal done. The next thing to do is obviously post it to the ledger. I'm just going to go ledger account at a time to explain it to you. There was the opening balance of all your vehicles. The asset disposal decreased our vehicles by 180,000, so the new balance is 360,000. Then accumulated depreciation is a minus plus account, so the balance at the beginning of the year comes on the credit side. We then updated depreciation with the 7,500. That depreciation together with its balance comes out of accumulated depreciation, and then you work out the new balance, and that balance here is the depreciation on the vehicles that you did not sell. Okay, asset disposal, you can see the double entry. I credit vehicles, I debit asset disposal. I debit accumulated depreciation, I credit asset disposal. I debit debtors control, I credit asset disposal. I debit loss on sale and expense, and I credit asset disposal. Now if you've done this correctly, when you add up, the two sides must actually be equal. Alright, the other thing that you need to know how to do with asset disposal is to deal with it as an adjustment in financial statements. If you look in the grade 12 videos, I have done a video on asset disposal as an adjustment. So you can watch that because it doesn't change. What I do with grade 12 would be exactly what I would do with you guys as well. Okay, thank you, and I hope you understand this a little bit better.